The morning sun filtered through the cracked window of the factory dorm, painting stripes of gold across Cassandra's narrow bed. It was 1986, but her heart pounded with the weight of a lifetime already lived. She sat up, her breath catching as she touched the coarse cotton sheet, the same one she'd slept on decades ago. Or was it yesterday? The air smelled of coal dust and jasmine, tugging her back to a life she thought she'd left behind. Cassandra was reborn and thrust into her 20-year-old body, her mind a tapestry of memories from 60 years with David Miller. In that past life, David had been her everything. A wiry factory worker with gold-rimmed glasses, he'd fallen for her at first sight in the bustling food factory where they toiled. His pursuit was relentless. 100 love letters, each penned with a fervor that made her blush, slipped under her dorm door or tucked into her workbench. She could still recite the first one by heart. Cassandra, your smile is the sunrise over the factory smokestacks, warming a heart I didn't know could feel. On the day he transferred back to the factory, he'd stood before the bulletin board, his voice trembling but clear, reading a 1,000-word poem that wove her name into every line. Their love story wasn't just theirs. It became a legend, splashed across a newspaper, whispered in the canteen, and even bound into a book years later. They'd built a life from nothing. From a leaky hut where rain drummed on the tin, they rose to a villa with rose gardens. From pedaling a tricycle through muddy lanes, they drove sleek cars that gleamed under city lights. Their children grew, their grandchildren laughed, and their love, though tested by layoffs and lean years, held firm. On his sickbed, David's hand, frail but warm, clasped hers. She'd teased, I barely understood your letters back then. Next time, draw me pictures instead. He'd smiled, eyes crinkling, and whispered, of course. That promise lingered as she closed her eyes for the last time, her heart full. Now, impossibly, she was here again. The calendar on the wall read June 29th, 1986, the date etched in her soul. Cassandra pressed her palms to her cheeks, feeling the smooth skin of youth, unmarred by time. Reborn. The word echoed, both a miracle and a mystery. She swung her legs off the bed, her bare feet meeting the cold floor, and stared at her reflection in a chipped mirror. The same wide eyes and dark braid, yet behind them swirled a lifetime of wisdom and regret. Why am I here, she wondered. Was it to relive that love, to mend the moments she'd wished they'd savored more? Or was it something else, a chance to rewrite the regrets that lingered like shadows? Her dorm was a time capsule, a wooden desk scarred with ink, a radio humming revolutionary tunes, and a stack of dog-eared novels she'd read to escape the factory's grind. But now, those novels felt trivial. She knew the future, stock market booms, technological leaps, the factory's rise to a corporation. Yet none of it mattered as much as David. In their past life, she'd been shy, slow to respond to his letters, letting a year pass before confessing her love. They'd lost time to her hesitation, the time they could have spent building dreams sooner. This time, she vowed, she'd be bold. She'd answer his first letter with one of her own, her words as fierce as his, sparking their love from the start. Cassandra pulled out a sheet of paper, her hand trembling as she practiced her handwriting. In her past life, her script had been clumsy, barely legible, a source of shame when David's elegant prose arrived. She'd taught herself calligraphy in their later years, a hobby to fill quiet evenings. Now she traced each stroke carefully, imagining her reply. David, your words light my world. Let's begin our story today. The thought made her smile, a flutter of hope warming her chest. She pictured him at the bulletin board, his poem ringing out, the factory workers cheering as she stepped forward, no longer the timid girl, but a woman ready to claim her love. Yet beneath her excitement, a question gnawed. Rebirth was no small thing. She'd prayed for second chances in her past life, but never like this. Is this a gift or a test? She remembered the regrets, arguments over money, nights she'd cried alone when David worked late, dreams she'd shelved to raise their children. If she could redo it all, could she make it perfect? Or was perfection a fantasy, even with a lifetime's knowledge? The factory whistle shrilled, snapping her from her thoughts. She tucked the paper away, her resolve firm. David's first letter would come soon, and she'd be ready. Whatever rebirth meant, she'd face it with courage, determined to make this life the one they deserved. Cassandra leaned against the factory bulletin board, the wood rough under her fingertips, her heart a drumbeat of anticipation. It was late summer 1986, the air thick with the hum of cicadas and the faint tang of machine oil. She'd checked her dorm mailbox, her workbench, and even the canteen's notice board for weeks, expecting David's first love letter. In her past life, his words had arrived like spring rain, steady and sure, each envelope a promise of the love that would define her. She'd practiced her reply, her calligraphy sharp and confident, ready to meet his passion with her own. But the days stretched into silence. No letters came, not one. She adjusted her yellow dress, its hem swaying above her knees, a style she'd chosen to echo the Hong Kong movie stars David once admired. Her braid was neat, her smile practiced, but doubt crept in. Is rebirth playing tricks on me, she wondered, her mind wrestling with the strangeness of living twice. She'd seen the future, decades of change, from tricycles to luxury cars, yet here she was, waiting for a letter that refused to arrive. The factory bustled around her, workers in faded blue uniforms, the clatter of canning machines, the murmur of gossip about the latest production quotas. Cassandra clung to her memories of David's devotion, his gold-rimmed glasses glinting as he'd read his poem to her, their love story a beacon in the chaos of their past life. The bulletin board, plastered with notices about shift changes and union meetings, was the heart of the factory's pulse. David had stood here in her past life, his voice carrying over the crowd, confessing his love with a poem that made her name a melody. She'd been too shy to step forward, letting him chase her for a year. This time, she'd be ready, her heart open from the start. Workers spilled into the courtyard as the noon whistle sounded, their chatter a low roar. Cassandra's eyes scanned the crowd, searching for David's familiar figure. Short hair, neat, his uniform worn, but proud. He appeared at the courtyard's edge, his stride purposeful, a canvas frame tucked under his arm. Her breath caught. He's here. The sight of him, unchanged yet vivid, sent a shiver through her. His blue work uniform, faded from countless washes, hugged his lean frame, and his glasses caught the sunlight, flashing like a signal. She smoothed her dress, her pulse racing, imagining the moment he'd stop before her, his dimple flashing as he smiled. But David didn't slow. His eyes, bright with purpose, slid past her, locking onto someone else. Cassandra followed his gaze, her stomach lurching. Emily stood beside her, the factory beauty, her auburn hair catching the light, her laugh ringing out as she chatted with a coworker. The crowd parted as David approached, his steps deliberate. Whispers rippled through the workers. Is that the new technician? What's he carrying? But Cassandra barely heard them. Her world narrowed to David, to the frame in his hands, to the way his lips curved in a smile she'd once thought was hers alone. He stopped before Emily, dropping to one knee with a grace that stole the air from Cassandra's lungs. The courtyard fell silent, save for the faint crackle of the factory radio playing "The East is Red." The song, her favorite in their past life, the one David had played during his confession, now twisted like a knife. "Emily," David said, his voice clear and steady, "I wrote you 100 letters. Did you get them?" He pulled the cloth from the canvas, revealing a portrait of Emily, her features captured in vibrant strokes of oil paint. "Will you be my girlfriend?" The crowd gasped, some cheering, others murmuring in awe. Emily blinked, flustered, her cheeks pink. She stammered, "I don't even know you," but David's gaze burned unwavering. "I'm David Miller," he said. "I met you once, and I've loved you ever since. This painting is for you." Cassandra's legs trembled, her hands clutching the bulletin board for support. 100 letters, a painting. The gestures she'd cherished that had built her life with David were now Emily's. Her best friend, her confidant, the woman who shared her dorm and her secrets, was the one he loved. The radio's melody looped, each note a mockery of her hope. He's chosen her. The truth hit like a physical blow, her vision blurring with unshed tears. She wanted to run, to scream, but her feet were rooted, her body betraying her as the crowd chanted, "Say yes! Say yes!" Emily shook her head, her voice cold. "It's nice, but no." David's smile faltered, but he pressed on, holding her hand. "Give me a chance, Emily. I won't let you go." The workers cheered louder, caught in the drama, but Cassandra felt like a ghost, unseen, her heart splintering. She remembered David's promise on his sickbed. "I'll draw pictures for you." Had he been reborn too, his vow meant for Emily all along? The thought clawed at her, mingling with the surreal weight of her second life. If I'm here to relive love, why is it slipping away? She forced herself to turn, her steps heavy as she left the courtyard. The factory's noise faded, replaced by the echo of her thoughts. Rebirth had promised a chance to rewrite her story, but now it felt like a cruel jest. David's love, the foundation of her past life, was a mirage, and she was left grasping at shadows. Yet, beneath the pain, a spark flickered. If he's not mine, who am I? For the first time, Cassandra wondered if rebirth wasn't about David at all, but about finding herself. As she reached her dorm, the radio's song faded, and she vowed to face whatever this new life held, even if it meant letting go of the love she'd thought was eternal. Cassandra stumbled into her dorm, the door creaking shut behind her, muffling the distant cheers from the factory courtyard. The air was stale and heavy, with the scent of damp laundry and the faint hum of "The East is Red" still looping on the radio. Once a symbol of hope, her yellow dress felt like a costume now, mocking her shattered expectations. She sank onto her narrow bed, the springs groaning under her weight, and pressed her hands to her face. David's voice echoed in her mind. "Emily, will you be my girlfriend?" The words were a blade, carving through 60 years of memories she'd thought were hers. Her heart, so full of love just hours ago, now throbbed with betrayal. She reached under her pillow, pulling out the sheet of paper where she'd practiced her calligraphy, her imagined reply to David's letter. "Your words light my world." The ink blurred as tears welled, and she crumpled the page, letting it fall to the floor. No letters, no love. The silence of her mailbox was louder than the factory's canning machines, a void where David's devotion should have been. Rebirth, which she'd seen as a gift to rewrite their love, now felt like a curse, thrusting her into a world where her soulmate chose another. "Why am I here?" she whispered, the question a lifeline in the storm of her thoughts. Was rebirth a chance to reclaim David, or a test to uncover a truth she'd missed in her past life? Her gaze drifted to the chipped mirror across the room, reflecting a face both young and ancient. She stood, drawn to it, and traced the smooth curve of her cheek, untouched by the wrinkles of her later years. Behind her eyes, a lifetime flickered. David's dimpled smile, their children's laughter, the villa's rose gardens. But now, those memories felt like a borrowed story she'd misread from the start. A moment from their past surfaced, sharp and vivid, like a shard of glass. It was 1985, a year before their love began, in the factory's document room. Cassandra and Emily, giggling over a spilled stack of papers, had swapped their uniforms in a playful rush, their name tags pinned to the wrong chests. David had appeared, his glasses fogged from the summer heat, apologizing as he helped gather the scattered sheets. His eyes met Cassandra's, or so she'd thought, and a spark flared, brief but electric. "Like sunshine," he'd murmured, his voice soft as he glanced at the name tag on her chest. Emily. She'd assumed he meant her, the shy quality control worker who'd never been noticed. That moment had seeded their love, his letters arriving soon after, each addressed to Cassandra but describing a girl who shone like the sun. She'd been too dazzled to question it, too eager to believe she was his muse. Now the truth crashed over her like a wave. Those letters, with the vivid details of their first meeting, weren't for her. They were for Emily, the radiant beauty whose name she'd worn that day. The portrait David painted, the 100 letters he claimed to have sent, echoes of his true love, misdirected in their past life by a simple mix-up. Cassandra's marriage, her 60 years of devotion, her children and her grandchildren all rested on a lie. I stole his love, she thought, her chest tightening. She'd built a life on a mistake, never seeing the hesitation in David's eyes when he'd hugged her back at the bulletin board, never questioning why his passion faded after their wedding. The realization was a wound, but it also sparked a deeper question. Was it all a lie? David had stayed, built a business with her, and raised their family in their past life. If he'd loved Emily, why hadn't he left? Had duty bound him, or was there a flicker of love for her buried beneath his heart's genuine desire? The ambiguity gnawed at her, but another thought followed, sharper and more urgent. What would rebirth mean if David had never been mine? She'd awakened in 1986 expecting to relive their love, but now she saw a different path. Rebirth wasn't about clinging to a past that wasn't hers. It was about finding who she was without David's letters to define her. Cassandra wiped her tears, her resolve hardening like steel in a forge. She straightened, smoothing her dress, and looked again at the mirror. The girl staring back wasn't the timid Cassandra of her past life, nor the wife who'd lived for David's approval. She was reborn, carrying a lifetime's wisdom, and she would not let this betrayal break her. The factory whistle shrilled, signaling the end of the lunch break, and she stepped toward the door. Emily's laughter, David's painting, and the crowd's cheers were part of a story she no longer belonged to. "I'll forge my path," she vowed, her voice steady in the quiet dorm. Whatever rebirth held, she'd face it alone, determined to discover the woman she was meant to be. The factory canteen buzzed with the clink of metal trays and the low hum of conversation, but Cassandra felt like she was underwater, sounds muffled by the ache in her chest. The evening after David confessed to Emily. The fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows on the tiled floor. She sat across from Emily, her best friend, whose auburn hair glowed like a halo under the glare. Emily was laughing, recounting a coworker's clumsy attempt to flirt, her voice bright and effortless. Cassandra stirred her bowl of noodle soup, the steam rising in curls, and tried to smile, but her heart was a tangle of envy and shame. Emily was everything Cassandra wasn't. Her parents, both artists, had filled her childhood with sketches and music, gifts the factory's grind could never dull. Her uncle, a senior manager, ensured her confidence carried weight, and her every step was a declaration of belonging. Even now, as workers glanced her way, Emily seemed unaware of her radiance, her laugh drawing eyes like moths to a flame. In her plain cotton blouse, Cassandra felt invisible, her dark braid a shadow next to Emily's vibrance. David saw her light, she thought, remembering his kneeling before Emily, replaying like a stubborn melody. "Not mine." "Cassie, you're quiet tonight," Emily said, her green eyes narrowing with concern. She pushed a plate of steamed buns toward Cassandra, a familiar gesture from their shared dorm life. "Still thinking about that bulletin board circus?" Cassandra froze, her spoon hovering. Emily's tone was light, but her words pierced. "It was nothing," Cassandra lied, her voice barely above a whisper. "Just surprised, that's all." Emily leaned back, her expression softening. "David's sweet, but he's intense. That painting? It's flattering, but I get gifts like that all the time. I told him I'm not interested." Cassandra's grip tightened on her spoon. "All the time." Emily's casual dismissal of David's grand gesture, the same one that had shattered Cassandra's world, stung like salt in a wound. David's letters had been her lifeline in her past life, each word a proof of love she'd never known before. Now, to know they were meant for Emily, who brushed them off like dust, made her feel small, a thief who'd claimed a treasure not hers. Why her, she wondered, her envy flaring, but beneath it a deeper question stirred, tied to the mystery of her rebirth. If I'm here to find myself, why do I measure my worth against her? Emily sipped her tea, oblivious to Cassandra's turmoil. "Cassie, I've always admired how steady you are," she said, her voice earnest. "You work hard and never complain. Me? I'm just coasting on charm and my uncle's name." She laughed, but there was a flicker of vulnerability, a crack in her polished facade. "Sometimes, I wonder if I'd be enough without all this." Cassandra blinked, startled. Emily, the factory beauty, doubted herself. The confession was a lifeline, pulling Cassandra from her spiral. "You're more than enough," she said, her voice firmer. "You're kind, Emily, that's what matters." The words felt like a vow, not just to Emily, but to herself. Rebirth had thrust Cassandra into a second life, but she'd been clinging to David's love as her anchor, letting his betrayal define her. Sitting across from Emily, she saw a chance to redefine her purpose. "I'm not just David's wife," she thought, the realization like a spark in the dark. "I'm Cassandra, and I have a life to build." Her past life's wisdom, decades of managing a business and raising a family, whispered of possibilities beyond love. With its clanging machines and endless quotas, the factory could be her canvas, a place to prove her worth. Emily reached across the table, squeezing Cassandra's hand. "You're too good to me, Cassie. But seriously, what's with David? He's been trailing me all day, offering chocolates, promising more paintings. It's unsettling." She shuddered, her usual confidence dimming. "I don't trust men who come on that strong. My parents taught me to look for substance, not flash." Cassandra nodded, her envy softening into understanding. Emily wasn't just a rival, she was a friend, navigating her pressures in a world that adored her surface but rarely saw her depths. As they finished their meal, the canteen emptying around them, Cassandra felt a shift. Her rebirth wasn't about reclaiming David's love or competing with Emily's shine. It was about discovering who she could be, free from the shadows of her past life. She stood her blouse no longer a mark of insignificance, but a badge of her resolve. "Let's get back to the dorm," she said, her smile genuine for the first time that day. Emily linked arms with her, their steps in sync as they left the canteen. Outside, the factory's smokestacks loomed against the dusk, and Cassandra vowed to face her second life with courage, not as David's muse or Emily's shadow, but as herself. The factory's evening shift had ended, and the courtyard was quiet, save for the distant clatter of bicycles and the soft hum of crickets. Cassandra stood outside the women's dorm, her arms crossed against the late summer breeze, her mind still reeling from the canteen conversation with Emily. The betrayal of David's love for Emily had cracked her heart open, but Emily's vulnerability had sparked a new resolve to find her worth in this reborn life. She was about to head inside when a shadow moved near the dorm's entrance, and David stepped into the dim glow of a street lamp, his gold-rimmed glasses glinting like twin moons. "Cassie," he said, his voice low, urgent. The nickname, once a tender thread from their past life, now felt like a chain. She stiffened, her pulse quickening. "What do you want, David?" she asked, her tone sharp. He stepped closer, his faded blue uniform rumpled, a canvas bag slung over his shoulder. His eyes, usually calm, burned with a fervor she'd never seen in their 60 years together. "You're reborn too, aren't you?" he said. Not a question, but a certainty. "I saw it in your eyes on the bulletin board. You know who I am." Cassandra's breath caught, the weight of her second life pressing down. She'd suspected David was reborn. His painting for Emily, his fervent pursuit, echoed their past too closely to be a coincidence. But hearing him confirm it, standing here in the factory's shadow, made her skin prickle. 2 lifetimes and he's still not mine, she thought, the realization bitter but clarifying. "Yes," she admitted, her voice steady despite the storm inside. "I'm reborn, but that doesn't mean we're the same." David's lips twitched, a mix of relief and desperation. "You don't understand, Cassie. In our last life, I loved Emily. From the moment I saw her in the document room, she was my son. But you wore her name tag, and I got it wrong." His words were a knife, slicing through the illusion of their marriage. "I wrote those letters for her, but you answered. I stayed with you because it was right. Our story was in the papers, and our families expected it. I couldn't break it. But it killed me every day, pretending you were her." Cassandra's hands clenched, nails biting into her palms. 60 years, children, struggles, triumphs, reduced to duty, to pretense. "You stayed," she said, her voice trembling with rage and hurt. "You built a life with me, had children, grew old. If you loved Emily, why didn't you leave?" David's gaze dropped, his shoulders sagging. "I wanted to be honorable. Divorce was a shame back then. And you were good, Cassie. Too good. I couldn't hurt you." His words, meant as kindness, felt like a slap. Good. Not loved. Her mind spun, grappling with the paradox of rebirth. She'd awakened in 1986 to rewrite their love, but David's confession revealed a truth her past self had ignored. His heart was never hers. Yet the clarity of this second life sharpened her perspective. Rebirth isn't about fixing his love, she realized. It's about freeing myself from it. She straightened, her resolve like iron. "You're not honorable, David. You're a coward, hiding behind duty while you let me believe a lie." David flinched, but his desperation surged. "This life is my chance," he said, his voice rising. "I'm reborn to chase Emily, to make it right. I've been studying art, just like she loves. I'm giving her everything, paintings, gifts, my heart." He gestured wildly, his bag clinking with what sounded like more offerings. "But she's hesitant. You're her best friend, Cassie. Please help me. Talk to her, please. If I lose her again, I'll have nothing." The audacity of his request stunned her. In their past life, she'd given him everything, her time, her dreams, her heart, never questioning his reserved affection. Now, he stood before her, reborn and unashamed, asking her to pave the way for his true love. You have nothing to do with me, she said, her voice cold as the night air. Chase Emily if you want, but don't expect me to help you betray me twice. David's face crumpled, his glasses fogging with the heat of his frustration. Cassie, please! No, she cut him off, stepping back. I'm not your wife anymore. I'm not your anything. The words were a liberation, severing the thread of their past. She turned toward the dorm, her steps firm, but David's voice followed, softer now, almost pleading. You don't know what living a life that's not yours is like. This is my redemption. She paused her hand on the door but didn't look back. Redemption, she thought, that's what I'm seeking too, but not through you. Inside, the dorm was dark, Emily's bed empty. She was likely at a union meeting. Cassandra sank onto her bed, the springs creaking, and stared at the ceiling. David's confession had torn open her past, but illuminated her rebirth's purpose. She wasn't here to reclaim a love built on lies. She was here to discover who she could be, unshackled from the wife she'd been. The factory, with its endless possibilities, beckoned. She vowed that I'll build something of my own, her heart steadying. As the crickets sang outside, Cassandra closed her eyes, ready to face the unknown, her second life no longer defined by David's obsession, but by her strength. The factory's advanced workshop smelled of fresh paint and steel, a stark contrast to the greasy clatter of the main production floor. Cassandra stood at its entrance, her heart pounding with nerves and excitement. It was early September 1986, and the sting of David's confession still lingered, but her resolve to forge her path had led her here. The workshop, a new initiative for developing innovative products, was a chance to prove her worth beyond the shadow of her past life's love. She smoothed her work apron, her fingers brushing the name tag that read Cassandra, and stepped inside, ready to embrace her reborn purpose. The room buzzed with activity, workers tinkered with prototypes, their voices mingling with the hum of machinery. At the center stood Jason Chen, the workshop's leader, his silver hair catching the overhead lights like a beacon. Cassandra had heard of him, a brilliant inventor whose redesigns had boosted factory output, his prematurely white hair a mark of his relentless dedication. But she knew him from another memory, one from her past life. When her parents faced a costly surgery, a stranger had paid the remaining 20,000 yuan, slipping away before she could thank him. She'd caught only a glimpse of his back, athletic and crowned with that striking white hair. It was him, she realized, her chest tightening with gratitude. Jason turned, his dark eyes meeting hers, and a warm smile broke across his face. Cassandra, from quality control, he said, his voice steady, grounding. I've heard about your work ethic. Welcome to the team. His recognition startled her. She'd always been a quiet worker, unnoticed except by David's letters. Thank you, Mr. Chen, she stammered, her cheeks warming. I'm eager to learn. He waved off the formality, just Jason. We're a team here. Got any ideas to share? Her mind flashed to her past life, decades of managing a business with David, learning markets, and innovating on a shoestring. The factory's canned vegetables were popular, but she'd seen the future, convenience foods dominating shelves. What if we made pre-mixed rice toppings, she suggested, her voice tentative. Dried vegetables and spices, ready to cook. Workers could save time. Jason's eyes lit up and he jotted a note. That's fresh. Let's prototype it. Unlike David's dismissive nods, his encouragement sparked a flicker of pride in her chest. As days turned to weeks, Cassandra found her rhythm in the workshop. Late-night discussions with Jason over blueprints became a ritual, his quiet intensity a balm to her wounds. He listened, asking questions that drew out her ideas, canned meats, flavored snacks, each one met with a nod or a thoughtful, let's try it. One evening, as they tested a seasoning mix, he said, You've got a knack for this, Cassandra. Have you ever thought of leading a project? Her heart skipped. In her past life, she'd deferred to David, her ambitions buried under family duties. Rebirth is my chance to shine, she thought. The workshop's hum a reminder of her untapped potential. Yet David's shadow lingered. Gossip swirled about his pursuit of Emily. Imported chocolates left at her workbench, stylish wristwatches slipped into her locker, lavish dinners at the People's Restaurant. Workers whispered in awe, He's spending months' wages! Cassandra overheard Emily in the dorm, her tone weary. He's relentless, Cassie. I told him to stop, but he thought gifts would change my mind. Cassandra's stomach twisted, not with envy now, but pity. David's obsession, fueled by his reborn mission, was closing his eyes to Emily's discomfort. He's chasing a dream, not a person, she realized, her heartbreak easing as she saw his flaws. Jason's presence grounded her. One night, as they packed up, he noticed her quiet mood. "Something on your mind?" he asked, his voice gentle. She hesitated, then shared a fragment of her truth. "Someone I cared about. He's not who I thought." Jason nodded, no judgment in his eyes. "People show their colors in time. You're stronger than you know, Cassandra." His words, simple but sincere, felt like a lifeline. Unlike David's fervent promises, Jason's care was steady and rooted in respect. She wondered about the man who'd saved her parents. His kindness was a mystery she longed to unravel. As she left the workshop, the factory's smokestacks loomed against the starry sky, symbolizing her new beginning. Rebirth had stripped away her illusions about David, but it had given her a chance to build, create, and be seen. Jason's faith in her and the workshop's possibilities were sparks of a future she could shape. She thought I was not just a wife or a shadow, her steps lighter. David's gifts to Emily might dazzle the factory, but Cassandra was crafting something lasting, her legacy. The factory's main hall was lit, its high ceiling echoing with applause as the annual Outstanding Employee Awards began. Cassandra stood among her co-workers, her work apron swapped for a crisp blouse, her heart a mix of pride and trepidation. It was October 1986, and the air carried the crisp bite of autumn, mingling with the faint scent of machine oil that clung to the factory's walls. Weeks in the advanced workshop had fueled her confidence, but David's betrayal still cast a shadow. Tonight, she'd decided, would be different. She would no longer sacrifice for a man who'd never truly loved her. Cassandra had won this award 3 years running in her past life, and her meticulous quality control saved the factory thousands. However, each time she stepped aside, letting David claim the title to soothe his ego, his technical department was overshadowed by Jason Chen's brilliance. She told herself it was love, giving up her spotlight for their shared future. Now, reborn and wiser, she saw it for what it was, a surrender of her worth. When the factory director called her name, her breath caught. "Cassandra, for exceptional dedication," he announced, handing her a certificate and an 800 yuan bonus, a fortune in 1986. The crowd cheered, and she felt a surge of triumph, her past life sacrifices fading like mist. Emily rushed to her side, radiant in a floral dress, her smile wide. "Cassie, you deserve this," she said, pressing a snowflake cake into her hands, the cafeteria's priciest treat. "Let's celebrate." Cassandra laughed, the warmth of Emily's friendship a balm. But her joy dimmed when she spotted David across the hall, his face tight with frustration. He'd expected the award, his reborn ambition banking on past glories Cassandra had gifted him. His eyes locked on her, dark with resentment, and she braced herself. After the ceremony, as workers dispersed into the chilly night, David approached her outside the hall, his glasses fogging in the cool air. "Cassandra," he said, his voice low, strained, "congratulations." The word was hollow, his jaw clenched. She nodded, wary, clutching her certificate. "I wanted to ask," he continued, his tone shifting to a plea. "The director mentioned you've given up awards before. My family's struggling. Could you give me the bonus? You don't need it." His audacity hit like a slap, echoing his past life's demands. "Cassandra, give up your spot, your time, your dreams." Her mind flashed to those years, giving until she was a shadow of herself, the capable Miller wife who'd lost her name. Rebirth had shown her the cost of that surrender, and now, standing under the factory's flickering lights, she saw her second life's purpose clearly, to claim her value, not cede it. "Who are you to me, David?" she asked, her voice steady, cutting. "We're not married, you're chasing Emily, yet you ask me for money." His face flushed, his glasses slipping as he stammered. I thought since we were close once—" "Close?" she interrupted, her anger rising. "You lied to me forever. Let me believe I was your son. Now you want my reward?" She stepped closer, her certificate a shield. "I gave you everything before, but not anymore." David's shoulders slumped, his desperation palpable, but she felt no pity. His reborn obsession with Emily had closed his eyes to her pain, and she would no longer be his crutch. "Go," she said, turning away, her steps firm against the cobblestones. Back at the workshop the next day, Cassandra threw herself into her work, her award a spark of momentum. Jason Chen noticed, his silver hair glinting as he leaned over her latest proposal, canned meats for export. He said this could double our reach, his eyes bright with respect. "You're a natural, Cassandra." His praise, free of David's possessiveness, warmed her. During a break, she shared a sliver of her struggle as they sipped tea from chipped mugs. She admitted, "I used to give too much," staring into her cup. "I'm learning to keep something for myself." Jason nodded, his gaze steady. "You're more than what you give, you know. I saw it the first day you walked in here." Like his quiet support in the workshop, his words built a bridge to a future she could trust. She thought of his kindness in her past life, paying for her parents' surgery without a word. Who is he really? She wondered, her curiosity growing. Their late-night talks, once about prototypes, now touched on dreams, hers to innovate, his to make the factory a leader. Each conversation wove a thread of connection, subtle but strong. Meanwhile, David's pursuit of Emily grew reckless. Gossip spread of his latest gifts, imported sunglasses, a dinner bill he couldn't pay, forcing Emily to cover it. Cassandra overheard workers in the canteen, their voices low. "He's borrowing from her now," one said. "He thinks stocks will make him rich." Cassandra shook her head, her pity for David fading. His reborn ambition, unchecked by discipline, was a fire consuming him. "I'm free of that," she thought, her award certificate now pinned above her dorm bed, a reminder of her worth. As she left the workshop, the factory's smokestacks stood tall against the dusk, a testament to her new path. Rebirth had stripped away her illusions, but it had given her Jason's faith, the workshop's promise, and her strength. "I'm building my future," she vowed, her heart lighter than it had been in 2 lifetimes. The dorm room was a quiet cocoon. The only sound was the soft rustle of pages as Cassandra flipped through a notebook of workshop ideas. It was late October 1986, and the factory's night shift hummed faintly beyond the walls, a reminder of the world she was building. Her outstanding employee certificate hung above her bed, its edges curling in the damp air, a beacon of her reclaimed worth. David's entitled plea for her bonus had hardened her resolve, and the advanced workshop, with Jason Chen's steady support, had become her sanctuary. But tonight, as the moonlight spilled through the window, a shadow of unease lingered, tied to the gossip of David's unraveling pursuit of Emily. Emily had confided in her earlier, her usual radiance dimmed. "David's gone too far, Cassie," she'd said, her voice tight. "He borrowed 2,000 yuan, promising stock market riches. I don't trust him anymore." Cassandra nodded, her pity for David replaced concern for her friend. Unchecked by reason, his reborn obsession was spiraling, fueled by lavish gifts, sunglasses, chocolates, a wristwatch, that drained his meager wages. The factory buzzed with tales of his latest stunt, a dinner at the People's Restaurant where he'd begged Emily to pay, his stock dreams crumbling under scrutiny. Cassandra closed her notebook, her thoughts drifting to Rebirth's lessons. "I thought this life was about love," she mused, "but it's about truth." Her past life's blind devotion to David had cost her identity. Now, her second chance was about standing firm, building a future on her terms. Jason's encouragement, his quiet "you're a natural" after her canned meat proposal, had lit a fire in her, believing she could be more than a wife or a shadow. She smiled, thinking of their late-night talks, his silver hair glowing under workshop lights, his past kindness to her parents, a mystery she ached to explore. A sharp knock shattered her reverie, and the door burst open before she could respond. David stood there, his glasses askew, his face flushed with rage. "Cassandra," he slurred, his breath sour with cheap liquor. AAA's crumpled bouquet, likely meant for Emily, dangled like a broken promise in his hand. "You ruined everything." She stood, her heart racing, instincts honed by a lifetime of navigating his moods. "Get out, David," she said, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. He stumbled forward, dropping the flowers, his eyes wild. "Emily tore up my stock certificates. 2,000 yuan. Gone. She's done with me, and it's your fault." His words were a jumble, his reborn clarity drowned in desperation. "You turned her against me, didn't you? You owe me, Cassandra, from our last life. You trapped me in that marriage." The accusation, echoing his earlier confession, cut deep, but her rebirth's clarity held firm. I owe him nothing, she thought, stepping back toward the wall, her notebook clutched like a shield. David's voice rose, his hands shaking. You stole my love, my future. Help me fix this. Give me money. Talk to Emily. His entitlement, once veiled by charm, was now raw and ugly. She shook her head, her resolve ironclad. I'm not your wife, David. You made your choices. Live with them. His face contorted and he lunged, grabbing her arm, his fingers bruising. You can't walk away! He shouted, his grip sliding to her throat, tightening. Please give me the money, Cassandra! Panic flared, her breath shallow, the room spinning as she clawed at his hand. The door slammed open with a bang and Jason Chen surged in, his silver hair a blur as he seized David's collar and yanked him back. David stumbled, crashing to the floor, his glasses skittering across the tiles. Jason stood over him, his athletic frame taut with restrained fury. Get out, he growled, his voice a low thunder. David scrambled to his feet, muttering apologies, and fled, the bouquet left in a wilted heap. Jason turned to Cassandra, his dark eyes softening. Are you okay? He asked, guiding her to the bed, his hand steady on her shoulder. She nodded, her throat aching, tears burning but unshed. Thank you, she whispered, her voice hoarse. Jason knelt, picking up her notebook, his presence a lifeline. He said I was checking a prototype and saw you hadn't returned. Something felt wrong. Unlike David's demands, his concern warmed her, grounding her in the chaos. She thought of his past life's kindness, paying for her parents' surgery, and saw the same selflessness now. He's always been there, she realized, her curiosity about him deepening. Emily arrived soon after, alerted by a coworker, her face pale. Cassie, I'm so sorry, she said, hugging her tightly. I tore up his papers, not you. He's lost it. Cassandra squeezed her hand, her voice firm. Get your money back, Emily, and end it. He's dangerous. Emily nodded, her eyes resolute. Jason, ever practical, offered to request a private dorm for Cassandra, his care a quiet promise. As he left, his glance lingered, a spark of connection that stirred her heart. Alone again, Cassandra touched her throat, the bruises a reminder of David's fall and her strength. Rebirth had tested her, stripping away illusions, but it also gave her allies, Emily's friendship and Jason's protection. I'm not alone, she thought, her certificate glowing in the moonlight. David's violence was a breaking point, not just for him but for her, severing the last ties to her past life's pain. She vowed to rise, and her workshop dreams and newfound bonds were the foundation of a life she'd built herself. The advanced workshop glowed under fluorescent lights, its air thick with the scent of solder and ambition. Cassandra stood at a workbench, her notebook open to a sketch of a new flavored snack, her pen moving with the confidence of a woman reborn. It was spring 1988, nearly 2 years since David's violent outburst in her dorm, and the factory had become her proving ground. Promoted to supervisor, she led a team crafting products that doubled the factory's profits, pre-mixed rice toppings, canned meats, and now snacks that lined store shelves. Her outstanding employee certificate, framed in her private dorm, reminded her of her reclaimed worth, but the workshop's hum was her valid reward. David's attack had been a breaking point, severing the last threads of her past life's devotion. His downfall had followed swiftly. Emily, shaken by his violence, had demanded her 2,000 yuan back, her family's influence ensuring his reckoning. When David spread malicious rumors, claiming Emily had been pregnant and aborted, the factory erupted in outrage. Her uncle, a senior manager, pressed charges, and David was questioned for public indecency, his reputation shattered. Fired and shunned, he'd left the city, chasing reborn dreams of grandeur, oblivious to the discipline his second life demanded. Cassandra had watched from afar, her pity replaced by clarity. Rebirth offers no shortcuts without effort. Her rebirth had taught her this truth. She reflected that I thought it was about love and adjusting a prototype seasoning mix, but it's about building something lasting. Her past life's wisdom, decades of business savvy honed through lean years with David, fueled her innovations, but her courage to stand alone now defined her. The factory director had noticed, calling her supervisor Cassandra with a nod of respect. Workers sought her input, and her ideas were no longer whispers but commands. She thought, this is who I am, her heart steady, free from the shadow of David's betrayal. Now, a close ally, Jason Chen was her anchor in this new life. His silver hair flashed as he reviewed her snack proposal, his smile warm. "This'll sell out in weeks," he said, his faith in her unwavering. Their bond had deepened over late-night talks, moving beyond prototypes to shared dreams, hers to innovate, his to make the factory a national leader. He'd ensured her bonuses were generous, a quiet gesture that spoke louder than words. One evening, as they cleaned the workshop, she asked, "Why do you believe in me, Jason?" He paused, his dark eyes meeting hers. "Because you see what's possible, Cassandra. Like I do." His words, like his past act of paying for her parents' surgery, hinted at a depth she longed to understand. Emily, too, had become a pillar. After David's firing, she'd resigned to study art abroad, her parents' connections securing her escape from his shadow. Letters arrived monthly, filled with sketches and stories of Paris, her words vibrant yet tinged with regret. "I should have listened to you sooner, Cassie," she'd written. "You saw David's truth before I did." Cassandra treasured these letters, pinning them beside her certificate, a testament to their friendship's resilience. Emily's decision to leave had inspired her resolve. Rebirth means choosing your path, not following another's. David's absence left a void in the factory's gossip, replaced by whispers of his failures elsewhere. He'd tried to leverage his reborn knowledge, stock tips, business schemes, but his arrogance alienated partners, his lack of grit dooming his ventures. Cassandra learned this from a coworker's letter describing David's return to a nearby town, jobless and broken. He thought rebirth guaranteed success, she mused, stirring a test batch of snacks. But without work, it's just a second chance to fail. Her success, built on diligence and innovation, was proof of rebirth's true power, not to rewrite the past, but to shape the future. One afternoon, Jason found her in the workshop, her face clouded by thoughts of David's fate. "You're far away," he said, handing her a chipped mug of tea, their ritual. She sighed, sharing a fragment of her past. "Someone I loved." He squandered his second chance. "It makes me wonder what mine is for." Jason's gaze was steady, his voice soft. "Maybe it's for this, making something real, something yours." His hand brushed hers, a fleeting touch that sparked warmth. She thought of his quiet heroism saving her from David and felt a pull toward him, a connection rooted in trust, not obsession. As she left the workshop, the factory's smokestack stood against a golden sunset, symbolizing her ascent. Rebirth had tested her, stripping away David's illusions, but it had given her Jason's faith, Emily's loyalty, and strength. She thought I was not just surviving, her notebook tucked under her arm. I was thriving. The workshop's promise, her team's respect, and the bonds she'd forged were her legacy, built not on borrowed love, but her merit. With each step, Cassandra felt lighter. Her second life was a canvas she painted with purpose, ready for whatever lay ahead. The factory's R&D department, once the advanced workshop, thrummed with innovation, its walls lined with blueprints and product samples. Deputy Head Cassandra stood at a conference table, presenting a new line of instant noodles to the factory director. It was summer 1990, and the late afternoon sun slanted through high windows, casting golden streaks across her notes. Her journey from quality control worker to leader had been fueled by her reborn wisdom, decades of business acumen from her past life, but her courage, forged through David's betrayal, shone brightest. As the director nodded approval, she felt a quiet pride, her second life a testament to her strength. David's shadow had faded. After firing 2 years ago, he'd vanished, his reborn dreams of wealth crumbling under his recklessness. Emily's letters, arriving like clockwork from Paris, had kept Cassandra grounded. "I'm free of him, Cassie," she'd written, her sketches of Parisian cafes vibrant with hope. "Art school is my rebirth." Emily was returning for her wedding, inviting the factory crew to celebrate. Cassandra pinned the invitation beside her outstanding employee certificate in her private dorm, a symbol of bonds that endured. She thought that rebirth wasn't just mine, it was ours, built on choices. Once scarred by David, her heart had found a new rhythm with Jason Chen. Their bond, woven through late-night workshop talks, had grown more profound. Jason, now R&D head, was her partner in every sense. His silver hair was a constant in her days, and his steady presence contrasted David's fervor. He'd started leaving her letters, not grand like David's, but simple, heartfelt. "Your ideas light up the room, Cassandra." They filled a box under her bed, each one a quiet promise. One evening, as they tested a noodle prototype, he'd taken her hand, his voice soft. "You're more than enough, Cassandra. I always have been." Her breath caught, the warmth of his touch erasing old wounds. Their romance had blossomed slowly, rooted in trust. Jason's past kindness, paying for her parents' surgery in her past life, had been a mystery she'd unraveled over time. "I saw your family struggle," he'd confessed one night, his eyes distant. "I had the means, so I acted. I didn't need thanks." His selflessness, so unlike David's demands, drew her closer. They'd shared dreams, hers to revolutionize food production, his to mentor young inventors. Each letter he wrote slipped into her locker or tucked into her notebook was a step toward love, the glove compartment in his old sedan overflowing with them. Cassandra's rebirth had taught her love wasn't owed but earned. "I thought it was about David," she reflected, stacking noodle samples, "but it's about finding what's real." Her past life's devotion had been a mirage, but with Jason's quiet devotion and Emily's friendship, this life was solid, built on mutual respect. She'd feared love after David, but Jason's patience, his gentle questions, his laughter at her workshop quips, had healed her. One night, under the factory's smokestacks, he'd kissed her, the stars above a silent witness. He'd said, "I'm not going anywhere," and she believed him. Emily's return was a whirlwind. She arrived at the factory, her auburn hair longer, her smile radiant, and her arm in arm with a blonde, blue-eyed fiancé named Luke. "Cassie!" she cried, hugging her tightly in the canteen. "Meet Luke. He's me forever." Luke, an art curator, beamed, his French accent charming the workers. Emily pulled Cassandra aside, her eyes bright. "I'm so happy, but I owe you. You warned me about David, and I didn't listen. This life, it's mine now." Cassandra squeezed her hand, her heart full. "You found your path, Em. That's enough." The wedding plans consumed the factory's gossip, a welcome shift from David's old scandals. Emily's invitation promised a grand celebration, and Cassandra looked forward to it, her life blooming alongside her friends. Jason, ever her support, offered to drive her to the venue, his sedan a far cry from the tricycle of her past. "We're a team," he said, his smile crinkling his eyes, and she felt a surge of love untainted by doubt. Her rebirth had stripped away illusions, revealing what mattered. Work that fulfilled her, friends who lifted her, and a man who saw her truly. As she left the R&D department, the factory's smokestacks glowed against the dusk, symbolizing her rise. "This is my second chance," she thought, her notebook tucked under her arm, Jason's latest letter in her pocket. David's absence was a faint echo, his fate a cautionary tale of squandered potential. Cassandra, thriving in her career and love, knew her rebirth's purpose: to live authentically, to love without fear. With Jason by her side and Emily's wedding ahead, she stepped into the evening, her heart alight with possibility, ready for the next chapter of her reborn life. The hotel ballroom sparkled with lanterns, their golden light dancing across tables draped in white linen. Emily's wedding was a spectacle, her auburn hair glowing under a veil as she twirled with Luke, her blonde-haired fiancé, to a lively folk tune. It was June 1990, and the factory crew filled the room, their laughter mingling with clinking glasses. Cassandra stood near the edge, her emerald dress catching the light, a smile tugging at her lips. Her journey from heartbreak to triumph, now deputy head of the factory's R&D department, felt complete in this moment of celebration. Beside her, Jason Chen, dashing in a tailored suit, squeezed her hand, his silver hair a quiet beacon in the festive chaos. Emily's return was a triumph. Her art studies in Paris culminated in love and a new life. "Cassie, you made this possible," she'd whispered earlier, hugging her tightly. "You saw through David when I couldn't." Cassandra's heart swelled, their friendship a cornerstone of her reborn life. Her love with Jason had deepened, his letters, now over 100 tucked in her dorm's box, proof of a bond built on trust, not an illusion. Rebirth gave me clarity, she thought, watching Emily dance. Not to chase a lost love, but to create one that's true. The music paused and guests spilled onto the balcony for air. Cassandra followed her hand in Jason's, the night air cool against her skin. The city's skyline glittered, a far cry from the factory's smoky haze. She leaned against the railing, savoring when a hoarse voice broke the quiet. "Cassandra." She turned, her stomach tightening. David stood there, gaunt and unshaven, his clothes loose on a frame worn by failure. His eyes, once bright behind gold-rimmed glasses, were hollow, his scraggly beard a mark of his descent. "Was it you?" he rasped. "Did you pull strings to ruin me?" The accusation stung, but Cassandra stood tall, with Jason's presence warmly beside her. David's downfall was no secret. After his firing, he'd chased reborn dreams of wealth, leveraging stock tips and schemes from their past life. But his arrogance and lack of discipline alienated his partners, leaving him jobless and a wanderer in a city that no longer welcomed him. "You stole my award, my future," he continued, stepping closer, his voice rising. "You turned Emily against me and got me fired." The crowd nearby hushed, eyes turning to the scene. Cassandra's heart raced, memories of David's violence flashing, his grip on her throat, his desperate demands. But she was no longer the woman who'd cowered. "I didn't stop you, David," she said, her voice calm, cutting. "You chose your path, spreading lies, burning bridges. Rebirth gave you a chance, and you squandered it." Her words, honed by years of newfound strength, silenced him. She thought of her past life, giving everything to a man who'd never loved her, and her rebirth's lesson: my worth isn't tied to his failures. David's gaze darted to the ballroom where Emily laughed with Luke. "I just wanted love," he muttered, his voice breaking. "Was that so wrong?" Cassandra's eyes softened, not with pity, but understanding. "I chased love in my last life too," she said. "But love doesn't excuse hurting others. Would you storm her wedding now, ruin her happiness?" He wavered, his shoulders slumping, and looked away, the fight draining. The truth was stark. His obsession with Emily, unchecked by accountability, had destroyed him, while Cassandra's rebirth had built her anew. Jason stepped forward, his hand on her arm, protective but restrained. "Let's go," he said, his voice low, but Cassandra shook her head. "I need to finish this." She faced David, and her emerald dress symbolized her transformation. "You blamed me for your choices, but I didn't steal your future. You did." Her words were a final severance, closing the book on their past. David opened his mouth, but no words came. Alerted by the crowd, hotel security moved in, grabbing his arms. "Please don't pull me," he shouted, his voice desperate. "I know her." Cassandra raised a hand, signaling them to pause. "Let him go," she said. "He's done." David stumbled back, his eyes meeting hers one last time, a mix of shame and defeat. He turned, disappearing into the night, a shadow of the man she'd once loved. Cassandra exhaled, the weight of 2 lifetimes lifting. Jason's hand found hers again, his touch a quiet anchor. "You okay?" he asked, his dark eyes searching hers. She nodded, a smile breaking through, better than ever. Her rebirth had been a crucible, burning away illusions to reveal her strength. David's accusations couldn't touch her now. She'd built a life of purpose, love, and truth. As they returned to the ballroom, Emily's laughter rang out, and Jason's warmth beside her felt like home. "This is my second chance," she thought, her heart full. The factory, her career, and her bonds with Emily and Jason were her legacy, which she earned through courage. The music swelled, and she stepped into the light, ready for the future, her past finally laid to rest. The ballroom's lanterns glow warmly as Emily and Luke swayed to their final dance, the crowd's cheers fading into a soft hum. Cassandra stood by the exit, her emerald dress shimmering, her heart full as she watched her friend's joy. It was June 1990, and the factory's transformation into a corporation mirrored her own. From a heartbroken worker to deputy head of R&D, her life was a tapestry of purpose woven from the threads of her rebirth. Jason Chen stood beside her, his suit crisp, his silver hair catching the light. His hand, warm in hers, was a quiet promise, a love earned through trust, not illusion. As the music ended, guests spilled into the hotel's courtyard, the night air alive with jasmine and city sounds. Cassandra and Jason stepped into a waiting-crowned sedan, its sleek lines a far cry from the tricycle of her past life with David. Jason slid behind the wheel, his smile shy as he handed her a bouquet of lilies and a folded letter. "Happy May 20th, he mumbled, blushing, referencing the romantic date Chinese couples celebrated. Cassandra laughed, her fingers brushing the petals and still writing letters. "Older man?" she teased, tucking the note into the glove compartment, already stuffed with over 100 of his messages, each a testament to their love. The sedan purred through the city, its lights blurring past, and Cassandra leaned back, her mind tracing her journey. Rebirth had been a crucible, burning away the illusions of her past life with David. She'd thought her second chance was to relive his love, but it had revealed a more complicated truth. Love wasn't owed, it was built. David's betrayal, his obsession with Emily, his violent demands, had forced her to see her past self, a woman who gave until she vanished. I was enough then, she thought, but I didn't know it. Her rebirth's gift was clarity, to live for herself, to claim her worth. The factory had been her canvas. Her innovations, rice toppings, canned meats, instant noodles, had turned it into a powerhouse, her title of deputy head earned through sweat and vision. Workers called her supervisor Cassandra respectfully, and her ideas shaped shelves nationwide. But it was the bond she'd forged that anchored her. Emily's friendship, resilient through letters and time, had shown her loyalty's strength. Jason, with his quiet heroism, saving her from David and paying for her parents' surgery in her past life, had taught her that love could be steady, not a storm. Jason glanced at her, his eyes soft in the dashboard's glow. "You're glowing tonight," he said, his voice warm. "The wedding or something else?" She smiled, her heart light. Everything. Emily's happiness, us, this life. She thought of their first kiss under the smokestacks, his letters piling up like promises. She said, "You've written me more than David ever did," half teasing. Jason chuckled, his hand finding hers. "I'm not him. It never will be." His accurate and straightforward words sealed the truth of their bond, one built on mutual dreams, hers to innovate, his to mentor. Her past life with David felt like a distant echo. His downfall, a cautionary tale of squandered rebirth, had taught her the final lesson. Potential meant nothing without effort. He'd chased Emily with reborn fervor, but his arrogance and entitlement, demanding her award, attacking her, had left him broken, a wanderer in a city that moved on. Cassandra, by contrast, had built a life of substance. She reflected that rebirth isn't a guarantee, it's a chance to choose better. She'd chosen work that fulfilled her, friends who lifted her, and a love that saw her truly. The sedan pulled up to her dorm, the factory's smokestacks looming in the distance, no longer symbols of toil but of triumph. Jason walked her to the door, his bouquet in her arms, his latest letter a weight in her pocket. "You're my home, Cassandra," he said, his voice low, and she kissed him, the stars above a silent witness. Inside, she placed the lilies on her desk beside Emily's latest letter and her certificate. Her overflowing box of Jason's letters was her new treasure, each one proof of a love she no longer questioned. As she lay in bed, the dorm quiet, Cassandra traced her journey. Rebirth had tested her, stripping away David's illusions to reveal her strength. She was no longer the wife who gave everything nor the shadow chasing a lie. She was Cassandra, a leader and innovator who was loved. The factory, now a corporation, was her legacy, built on her terms. Her second life was complete with Jason's love, Emily's friendship, and her courage. "This is enough," she thought, closing her eyes, the night wrapping her in peace, her heart alight with the joy